Hey guys, this is Cameron with Gone Catching Guide Service and Addicted Fishing, and in this tutorial we're going to talk about setting up, deploying, and targeting kokanee with a downrigger. Alright guys, so within my guiding of kokanee, one of the most common questions I get asked is, should I use a downrigger, and then how do I use a downrigger? So first off, I'm going to start with, I've installed my downrigger here, and what I have here is an electric Canon downrigger. Now, with downrigger fishing for kokanee, if you decide to buy a downrigger that can handle larger weights, 5, 10, and 12 pound downrigger balls, you can also use these for salmon. So even though these big electric downriggers are a little bit overkill for kokanee, I plan on using these for salmon earlier, and it's a nice dual purpose use for these. So now we're going to talk about deploying gear with your downrigger. Now what I've got here is I've got a 10-pound ball, but one thing I'm going to say is that if you're not using electric downriggers and you're using manual downriggers, it's probably best to use the lightest weight that you can, because you're going to be cranking that downrigger ball up and down, and using a 10 or 12 pound weight might be a little overkill for the speeds and for the gear that we're using for kokanee. So I've got my downrigger ball here, and then I've got about a 15 to 16 inch lead to my downrigger clip. Now, clips vary in shapes and sizes and functionality, but one thing I'm going to say for kokanee fishing that I prefer is I actually don't like the kokanee to release the clip for me. And the reason why I want that is because I want that fish to go up and grab that bait. I want to make sure that the hooks are properly set, because kokanee have a tendency to kind of come up and nip at the bait. And if the clip is set so light and it's popping it out, I'm getting false trips all the time, well, I'm not going to be fishing as efficiently as I'd like to. I'd have to be resetting the gear all the time. So I generally like to use a little stouter clip for my kokanee fishing. But if the fish grabs it really hard and pulls on it really hard and he can pull that clip loose, fine. So I don't get too crazy about that, but I've got about 15 inches there to my clip. I've got my cable, my electric downrigger, my rod holder here, and now I'm set to deploy. So depending on how deep I'm targeting my kokanee, that's going to have a lot of effect on how far my setback should be. And what my setback is the distance between my gear and my downrigger ball. So if I'm fishing deeper than 25, 30 feet, I don't need as much setback because the boat's not going to be spooking the fish. And generally what I'll do there is I'll run a very short setback just so I can deploy my gear quicker, and it's going to have less chances of tangling other gear as I'm reeling it in, especially when I'm double stacking. Now for double stacking, check out our other tutorial. We're going to be talking all about that as well. However, if I'm fishing shallow, 10, 15 feet deep, I need to have a larger setback just because the boat could be spooking those fish on the surface, and I need to allow time for those fish to come back in and find my gear. All right, so now I'm going to deploy my gear, and since I'm going to try to target kokanee at about 20 feet right now, just to be safe, I'm going to push my gear about 100 feet back. So I've got my line back 100 feet now. Now I'm going to add it to my downrigger. I'm going to take my clip, take my line, and I'm going to go about halfway into this. So depending on if you're using a braided line or a monofilament, you are going to have to learn that variable as far as adjusting where that line is going to go in the clip that you're using. Not all clips are the same, and if you're using a thicker braid or a thinner braid or a different monofilament, it's all going to be different on how much tension it's going to take to release that clip. That's just something you're going to have to experiment, and you're going to want to keep track of that so you can replicate that when you're getting a fish on. Now that I've got my line in the clip, I'm going to release the spool. I'm going to keep my thumb on my trolling reel here, and I'm going to press down, or I'm going to release my downrigger ball to the depth I want. I'm going to go fairly slow, and I'm going to keep a little bit of tension on the line. Then I'm going to disengage the free spool and add it to the rod holder. So now that I've got my downrigger depth set, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my reel, and I'm going to tighten my line up. Adding that curve in the rod is really important because it's going to do two things. First off, if the fish is able to grab the bait and rip it off the downrigger clip, the rod's going to take up some of that slack, and it's going to allow me to quickly tighten up the line so I don't lose my fish. The second thing that it's going to do is that if I do see the fish on the line and he hasn't released it from the clip, having that little bit of tension allows me to just grab the rod and give it a quick pop from right there to reel him in. Now, another important thing that I thought I should mention here is that if you're beginning downrigger fishermen, you need to make sure that you carry something that can cut your line. People have been known to snag downrigger balls on the bottom in the structure that won't release the downrigger ball and can snag the boats up. If there's currents or if you're fishing in a smaller boat, that could cause some trouble. So make sure that if you're using steel cable, that you have a set of dikes or some kind of set of nippers that can cut that cable quickly in an emergency situation. Or if you're using braid, at the very least make sure that you have a knife handy at all times. All right guys, so that's the quick and simple way to deploy kokanee gear with the downrigger. And if you're one of those beginning kokanee fishermen, man, I'm telling you what, you are gonna have a much more enjoyable experience using a downrigger. The advantages outweigh the disadvantages so much that I strongly suggest going out and purchasing a set of downriggers. If you guys like what you see here, be sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Addicted Fishing. And for your next kokanee trip, look up Gone Catching Guide Service. We'll see you guys on the water.